just really into bad family trees these days. What can I say? Hello, my name is Haley Whipjack, and I love looking at complicated, sophisticated, serious fantasy and breaking it down to its reality TV show, terrible Thanksgiving dinner core. And absolutely no one is having a worse holiday meal than the Targaryens from George R.R. Martin's A Song of Ice and Fire. Seen on the small screen in hit TV shows Game of Thrones and House of the Dragon, the Targaryen family is known for three things. Their iconic platinum blonde, silver gold hair, the fact that they're the only guys in town who can ride dragons, and their penchant for keeping things in the family. Aegon the Conqueror showed up married to both of his sisters, and everyone just went along with it. And then kept going along with it. If you only know the members of the Targaryen family that TV has shown you, you are missing out. There are some real freaks in there that they aren't telling you about. Today, we are going to track the Targaryen family tree, or family wreath, as I have been calling it. I'm going to talk you through the drama, because these people cannot mind their own business and live a quiet life. Okay, we'll see what kind of shapes we can draw and who I get unnecessarily attached to. If you're not new to the channel, you know it doesn't take much for me to adopt a fictional character as my own. I got these guys from basically a fantasy encyclopedia, and many of them are still family to me. If you wish you could have seen this video before everyone else, you should have joined my legions of impossibly small and fast dragon riders that I call my patrons on Patreon. We have a lot of fun over there, getting early access and extra videos and dragon riding lessons. I don't teach dragon riding lessons. I'm sorry, that one was a goof. I actually push you out of the nest and you can teach yourself, because I believe in you. All that's really left to do is start drawing tangled webs and getting to it. So I suppose I'll just... Perfect. So now this isn't gonna work. I'm gonna need a bigger whiteboard? Hello? Is this too much? Is it too big? Too bad we're here. And no, I will never use this size whiteboard for Once Upon a Time. That's not as funny. This is for the Targaryens. One more thing before we start mapping out guys. I have a book. It just came out recently. It's called Before the Tavern. I wrote it. This is Before the Tavern, 100 character concepts for tabletop role-playing games. I wrote it alongside my friends Amelia Som and Gus Rachels, who you might be familiar with if you follow my work over on Unprepared Casters, my TTRPG podcast. It is full of, in fact, 100 character concepts that you can use for tabletop role-playing games. The pages are perforated. You can tear them out, and it's good. You can get it anywhere that books are sold. Thank you. But let's talk about these characters, shall we? We are going to start with Aegon the Conqueror and his sister wives, maybe a different definition of sister wife than you're used to, but sister wives I would say is accurate. I'm not starting in old Valyria, okay? I don't want to. There's not as much family drama in old Valyria. The drama is that old Valyria exploded in the Doom, and the only reason that any Valyrians survived at all is because one young woman, Daenys Targaryen, Daenys the Dreamer, had a vision of the Doom, and the Targaryens got out of there. Some Targaryens do prophecies, most of them don't. It's just one of the quirky things about them, okay? They're also like slightly heat resistant. They're not fireproof, and they have special purple eyes and platinum blonde hair. The Targaryens were not important back in Valyria. They were a minor noble house, but they're the only dragon-riding nobles that didn't get doomed. Left all those other blood-magicking dragon folk behind. They brought some dragons with them and ended up on a place called Dragonstone. And they just hung out on Dragonstone for like 100 years. Until Aegon the Conqueror, Aegon Targaryen, first of his name, our first guy on the map. Aegon said, I think we can unite these 7 kingdoms, and I can be in charge of them. And he was right. I'm not going to explain the intricacies of Aegon's conquest to you. It bores me. I'm here for the familial drama, and there's very little of that in just kind of successfully conquering a bunch of kingdoms. What you need to know is that Aegon Targaryen, super hot, 27-year-old dragon rider, becomes king of the world, except for Dorne, which will not bow to dragons. Dorne said no thank you. Everyone else said okay. Aegon Targaryen, first of his name, is super hot, a dragon rider, renowned warrior. I would also argue kind of a nerd and a doofus, because he names his base of operations, the place that later becomes King's Landing, capital of Westeros, that place, base of operations, he names it Aegon Fort. That is goofball behavior. His dragon was named Balerion the Black Dread, a super cool old dragon from Valyria, the biggest dragon ever seen in Westeros. And Aegon had 2 wives, both of which are, of course, his sisters. Aegon's older sister was named Visenya. Visenya is a badass. That's sort of the only way to describe Visenya. It is said that Aegon married Visenya out of duty. That is who he was supposed to marry since he was a child. The Targaryens, as said, they keep it in the family. They were not in love, Visenya and Aegon, but that's okay. Visenya also rode a dragon called Vhagar, who's also huge as all hell. And then there's Rhaenys. Rhaenys, Aegon wed out of passion, out of love. He had to marry Visenya, but Rhaenys, she was a soft and sensitive and musical and creative soul. Everybody loved Rhaenys. Everybody loved Rhaenys. She was delightful. She also had a dragon named Meraxes. Rhaenys was the youngest of the trio. It went Visenya, Aegon, Rhaenys. Visenya and Rhaenys each give Aegon 1 child, both a son. Aenys, son of Aegon and Rhaenys, yeah, they just sort of smashed their names together and said, that's what I'll name our only child. That's fine. His name's Aenys. He was born 5 years before Maegor, Visenya and Aegon's only child, and Maegor was not born until after Rhaenys' death, her untimely demise, which we'll talk about in a minute here, which means, I guess, fortunately, they avoided our first potentially really bad holiday dinner situation, which is just this group of 5. Okay, each mom has 1 son and was maybe not trying to turn the children's joint father against the other woman's son. I don't think that was actually the dynamic that Visenya and Rhaenys had. I think it's very telling that Aegon never really spent time with Visenya like that, and that the spare to go with the heir was only conceived through Visenya once Rhaenys wasn't an option anymore. I think they were both way more into Rhaenys than each other, but that is just my hot take. Visenya and Aegon come off as just such gym buddies to me. They're close and everything, but they don't want to hold hands about it. We'll rule the 7 kingdoms and we'll do a good job, but your bedroom is down the hall. And they burned every single structure they could reach in the nation of Dorne after Rhaenys' death. They went full scorched earth in her memory. Yes, Rhaenys is our first death. We only got 5 names on the board before they start dropping like flies. Dorne, the only kingdom, as previously mentioned, that said no thank you to the Dragon Kings, still always said no thank you to the Dragon Kings. And while fighting back revolts of Dornishmen, Rhaenys and her dragon Meraxes were shot down and they both perished. So I guess it's actually the first 2 deaths, because we will not be disrespecting the dragons in this house. Exact details of this event are unknown or debated, but the conclusion remains the same no matter what. Aegon's only got one wife now, and Aenys has lost his mom. Aenys is a weak, small baby. According to rumor, he might not even actually be Aegon's, on account of him being so weak and small and soft, and his mom had a thing for musicians, I guess, but there's no proof of that, and he's legitimate in the eyes of Aegon, so that is what matters. And he's just a soft boy. Like, he's trained in sword fighting and everything, but he's not good at it. His mom died when he was 3, and he apparently completely regressed for a little while, and he never grows into his father's image. He does get a dragon at a very young age, a hatchling named Quicksilver, who grows up alongside him, which is my favorite type of dragon bond that the Targaryens have. It's so cute. It is so cute. They were babies together. Maegor does not get to be babies at the same time as a dragon, and he is, in fact, opposite to Aenys in every way. He's a strong brute of a boy. Maegor is a fighter, and you'd have to be when your mom's Visenya. Cannot stress enough. Most cold, calculating, brutal woman in the Seven Kingdoms. We love Visenya. But it's no wonder that Maegor is like that. The two boys are not raised together. Aenys stays with his father Aegon in King's Landing, the capital, as the heir to the Iron Throne. And Maegor lives with Visenya on Dragonstone, the ancestral seat of the Targaryens, as Prince of Dragonstone. When Aenys is 15, he is wed to Alyssa Velaryon. The Velaryons also have the blood of old Valyria in them. Their family goes back a ways. So the Targaryens are pretty into mingling their families together if there are no suitable Targaryens around. We'll go for a Velaryon. Aenys and Alyssa have their first child, a daughter named Rhaena, the following year. Why did I make Rhaena so much smaller? I don't want her to be that. One second. Maybe you just realized they had to be smaller when you pre-drew out when I pre-drew out the family tree. I have no idea what this is going to look like when I'm done. I assume I'm going to have to redo this like 7 times. That's much better. Okay, Aenys and Alyssa have their first child, Rhaena, the following year. Okay, so Aenys is 16 and a dad. Visenya is noticing this potential succession issue, right? If Aenys is to die, is the crown going to go to Maegor or is it going to go to Rhaena? We're not sure. It's a little bit shaky as far as succession rules. Technically, it should go to Rhaena unless stated otherwise by Aenys if he gives it to Maegor instead. But also, male primogeniture is like kind of a thing. It's just not really law of the land. Anyway, Visenya says, I see this as a potential issue, and I know the solution. We are going to betroth this infant to my 11-year-old son, Maegor. Remember, there's a 5-year difference between the half-brothers. We will simply betroth this 11-year-old and this infant, and everything will be great. And the Faith of the Seven, the main religious institution in Westeros, says, wow, I don't think you will do that, actually. Instead, just a couple of years later, 13-year-old Maegor is married off to Cerys Hightower, niece of the High Septon of the time. High Septon is like the Pope. The Faith of the Seven is basically fantasy Catholicism for our purposes. I don't want to hear it. Maegor goes on to be knighted at 16 and goes and does a bunch of war. Aenys even hands over their father's blade, his big fancy sword called Blackfyre, after Aegon the Conqueror's death because he perceives his younger brother as being more worthy of it than he, the king, is. After Aegon's death, Maegor also finally gets a dragon, his father's dragon, Baelor the Black Dread. And does Aenys feel weird and bad about all that? After all, he was raised at his father's right hand his whole life, grown and pruned into the perfect successor. And then Aegon the Conqueror dies peacefully of a stroke at age 63. And by all accounts, it is his second son who bears his image, carries his sword, rides his dragon. Is Aenys not jealous? Aenys is not jealous. Aenys' life fucking ruled. He was in love with his wife Alyssa, and they had 6 children. Rhaena, Aegon, Viserys, Viella, Jaehaerys, and Alysanne. They're having a great Thanksgiving dinner over here. At least all the kids are young. Ignore the Maegor Visenya Cerise corner. They weren't invited and probably wouldn't come even if they were. 3 of Aenys and Alyssa's children get dragons as young children, too. Rhaena gets a dragon called Dreamfire when she's only 9 years old. Dreamfire is pretty and like lavender blue, just a gorgeous thing. And the youngest 2 kids, Jaehaerys and Alysanne, both get hatchling bond dragons, basically where an egg is put into their cradle, hatched as their babies, and then they get to be babies together with their dragons. Jaehaerys is named Vermithor, and Alysanne's is Silverwing. Vermithor, Jaehaerys' dragon, ends up growing to be one of the biggest dragons ever recorded in Westeros, after, of course, Baelor the Black Dread and Visenya's baby Vhagar. And Alysanne's dragon Silverwing is just a beautiful silver sweetheart. Viella dies as a newborn pretty much right after birth, so we're not going to hear anything more from her, but we will get to the rest of the kids in a bit. We need to go back to their dad, who's currently sitting the Iron Throne, ruling all those kingdoms. Once again, Aenys' life rules. He and his dynasty have been blessed by the faith of the 7. They're cool with him. They're cool with what he's doing. His brother Maegor is out personally squashing rebellions as they arise. But the fact that there are rebellions is a problem. Aenys just cannot conceptualize why anyone would rebel against him, because he hasn't, done anything wrong. But sometimes it's enough to just be a king, right? Especially a king who isn't a big, strong warrior. People aren't always into that. Aenys doesn't do any of the fighting himself. Everyone else handles that. Mostly Maegor and Baelor the Black Dread, but also other people, because just one Maegor does not a war win, unfortunately. Aenys is handing out rewards willy-nilly to everyone who wins battles for him, including making his brother Maegor his new Hand of the King. Hand of the King is like right-hand man, second in command sort of deal. Aenys also gives a boon to a man named Goran Greyjoy, allowing Goran Greyjoy to oust the faith of the 7 from a terrible, terrible corner of Westeros called the Iron Islands. I don't like the Greyjoys, I don't like their islands, and hopefully I won't have to talk about them again at all for this entire video. This act upset the faith. They don't like being ousted, even if it is from really bad islands. And then Aenys just sort of continues to upset the faith. Maegor shows up right after the birth and almost immediate death of Viella, as previously mentioned, and says, hey, so I've had 0 children in the time that Aenys has had 6. So clearly my wife Cerise is barren and will not be giving me any children, much less any sons. So I'm taking another wife. Just like my dad did. Should be no big deal, right? Big deal. Big deal. Faith says you cannot be married to multiple people. Aenys tells Maegor to either stop trying to be married to Cerise Hightower and Alice Haraway at the same time, or go be exiled for 5 years and also give me back our dad's sword. Maegor chooses exile and keeps both his wives and his dad's sword, 'cause fuck Aenys. It's Visenya who conducts the wedding ceremony for her sweet little baby boy and Alice. There should not be an E at the end of Alice. And then Maegor and his 2 wives go chill in Pentos for a while. Where's Pentos? Don't worry about it. The Faith of the Seven does not like this. They feel, even though Maegor was punished, it doesn't actually count because Maegor still got what he wanted. And then Aenys announces that he will see his 2 eldest children, Rhaena and Aegon, betrothed to be wed. Marrying a brother to a sister, that's not the way of the faith. That's not the way of the 7. Aenys says, too bad. And they get married anyway when they are 18 and 15, respectively. This wedding also gives Aenys the chance to steal the title of Prince of Dragonstone from his brother Maegor and give it to his heir, Aegon. Visenya is pissed, literally leaves the wedding early when the announcement is made, causing a damn scene. Aenys is declared a weak abomination, traitor. He flees assassination attempts from the kingdom that has turned on him, and he takes his family away from King's Landing to Dragonstone, and he gets sick. Very sick. For a brief time, it's actually Visenya, who's lived on Dragonstone for some time, who was in charge of her nephew's care. And it is under her care that Aenys perishes. Who's the heir? Aegon is the heir. Who cares? Not Visenya. Visenya takes her big, scary dragon, Vhagar, to go pick up her precious baby boy and his big, scary dragon and places him directly onto the Iron Throne. Maegor's the king now. Maegor starts immediately killing people who say he shouldn't be the king, and he participates in a massive trial as a part of that, sort of like a trial by combat. We're all just going to hit each other as hard as we can, and that will determine whether or not Maegor is fit to be king. Westeros is a bad place, maybe. 13 men died in that trial. Maegor was the only survivor, meaning he should get to be king, I guess, but he suffered massive head trauma and was in a month-long coma. So, everything's going gravy. Maegor, post-massive head trauma, is even more violent, potentially, because of the massive head trauma. He's just burning dudes, and he takes a 3rd wife, Tyanna of the Tower. Tyanna of the Tower is the woman who took care of Maegor whilst he was in that month-long coma. So now Maegor has 3 wives, and he has a special building constructed just for torture. Just a special torture building. Maegor's Holdfast, it's called, and actually only the 4th level of the dungeon of Maegor's Holdfast is for torture, but hey, I think we shouldn't build any part of a building specifically for torture, but maybe I'm just too woke. So Maegor and his mom are just burning dudes with their giant dragons, any rebellions, any members of the faith, anyone who is being rude to Visenya's perfect, beautiful little prince. King. So who's dead on the board right now? Honestly, not very many people, right? Aegon the Conqueror is dead. This is his crown. I should have said, I'm wearing Aegon the Conqueror's crown, but it's too big for my little head. If I wear it the way you're like supposed to, it's gonna fall down. So I have to wear it like it's a little tiara. Now, I don't want anyone to yell at me for it. Aegon's dead. The wife he actually liked is dead. And Aenys is dead. That's it, okay? That everybody else right here, alive. Not even meeting for family dinners, quite frankly. They're not even pretending. Now, eventually, 16-year-old Aegon, grandson of Aegon, does decide it was pretty uncool of his uncle Maegor to steal his throne the way that he did. Aegon spent many years separated from the rest of his family here. He and his sister wife Rhaena were kicking it in a place called Casterly Rock. Where is that? Don't worry about it. Rhaena this whole time has been separated from her dragon Dreamfire, the pretty little blue baby, because Dreamfire is still in King's Landing, got left behind when Aenys and Alyssa squirreled all their children away to Dragonstone. And King's Landing is where Maegor is. So that we don't really want to be there if we don't have to be. So we're on Casterly Rock. And while we're on Casterly Rock, Rhaena gives birth to twin girls, her and Aegon's first and only children, Araya and Rhaella. Now, Aegon and Rhaena do go back to King's Landing. They smuggle themselves into the capital because one will not be able to steal the throne back from their uncle without dragons. They do get Rhaena her buddy Dreamfire back, don't worry. And Aegon finally claims a dragon, and in fact claims his father, Aenys' dragon, Quicksilver. Imagine how fucking cool he felt that day. There's like no beating that. You sneak into the capital to get revenge against your uncle who usurped you. You watch your wife, sister, get her dragon back, and then you get your dad's dragon. Your dad that your aunt maybe killed. No, she wouldn't. Great aunt, your great aunt maybe killed. I would feel so cool. There's no beating that. And you're 16? My God. A bunch of big, important families are ready to rally behind Aegon's claim, but only after he gets himself a victory of some sort. He has to prove himself to them. He does manage to get himself like a starter army, and he goes seeking his victories. It does not go well. Aegon and his dragon Quicksilver are both slain by Maegor and Balerion the Black Dread. Maegor stays king, and Rhaena is widowed at age 20. And he is forever known as Aegon the Uncrowned. The victory over Aegon was so decisive, partially because Tyanna over here of the Tower is the master of whispers for Maegor's rule. So she just knows everything all the time and let Maegor knew Aegon's every move before it was even made. Tyanna is super into what Maegor has going on. She's a lot. Maegor takes Aenys and Alyssa's child Viserys as his personal squire and kinda sorta hostage, because you can't make moves against a man when he's got your kid. How long has this been unbuttoned? And you just didn't tell me the whole time? Betrayal. Viserys is a kind of sort of hostage of Maegor in King's Landing, okay? Alyssa Velaryon, along with her children, Jaehaerys and Alysanne, are kind of sort of hostages of Visenya on Dragonstone. Rhaena is hiding out in the Sunset Sea with her infant twin daughters. Where's the Sunset Sea? Don't worry about it. This, I think, is a strong contender for worst era for Thanksgiving, I think, because literally nobody is having a good time. Like, Tyanna's over there sharpening knives on her teeth or whatever. The angriest, violentest old lady is watching everyone's muscle twitch and judging them for it. There's crying babies. No good. 73-year-old Visenya Targaryen dies of being 73 during Game of Thrones times. Her body is burned and her remains were laid beside Aegon the Conqueror's. Not beside Rhaenys, though, because her body was never returned to her family after she perished in Dorne. Pretty rude? That's all three of the original Conquerors dead. After Visenya's death, Alyssa steals Dark Sister, which is the name of Visenya's fancy sword. It's Valyrian steel. It's the sword that she used to kill a bunch of dudes during the conquest. And Alyssa takes it and runs off into hiding with the 2 children she was able to take into hiding, which was, of course, her youngest, Jaehaerys, and Alysanne. This pissed off Maegor pretty bad. You know, his mom died, his mom's hostages have fled, so he does what any good uncle would do, and he tortures his 15-year-old nephew to death over the course of 9 days. He actually had Tyanna do it, but still. And let's talk about Tyanna for a second. Still, okay? The King's Raven. She was called. Scary lady. Alice, second wife number 2, gives birth around this time. Maegor's first child. Except it's not really a child. She gives birth to a stillborn, twisted up little monster. And Tyanna goes to Maegor about it, saying, "Oh, my lord, my liege, of course the child is a monster. It's not even yours." Alice was allegedly sleeping with a bunch of other men, trying desperately to get pregnant and provide the king a perceived heir. Tyanna had a little written out list of 20 of Alice's lovers, and she got to torture all of them. And then she also got to torture and kill Alice Haraway. Tortures this woman for 2 weeks. And Maegor still doesn't have an heir. Tyanna can't give him an heir. I guess that's just not what she's into. Cerise surely would have by now, if she could. What is a king to do? Except that Jaehaerys, all the way down here, is his heir and rule as faithfully as he can till the end of his reign, preparing this child to take over for him someday? Of course not. Of course not. Man takes 3 more wives. Maegor's black brides, they're called, all women who have given birth before, so he knows they're capable. Okay, it's Eleanor Costaigne, Jane Westerling, and Rhaena Targaryen. Yes, the very same Rhaena Targaryen. Tyanna got her witchy little hands on Rhaena's daughters and used them as leverage to get Rhaena to come peacefully to King's Landing. Which is great. At least Maegor does happily make Rhaena's daughter, Araya, his heir. You know, at least until he has a son. Araya is a very shy, scared, timid little girl, and her twin sister Rhaella is loud and boisterous and fiery. They're a really cute little pair. Cerise Hightower, Maegor's first wife, dies, and the cause is hotly debated. Could have been illness. Could have been Maegor ordering her tongue removed, and that went so bad that her throat got cut on accident. We'll never know, because they aren't real. Jane is pregnant. Eleanor is pregnant. Jane Westerling also gives birth to a little twisted up stillborn monster, just like Alice did. Is Maegor cursed? No. Tyanna has been poisoning the wives, just like she poisoned Alice Haraway. It was her fault the whole time. The whole time. She tortured Alice for 2 weeks for something that she did to her. Tyanna does not survive that confession. Her husband, Maegor, cuts out her heart with his dad's fancy sword. Eleanor's child is also born stillborn and twisted. Maegor continues to wage war. He does get the Red Keep built, though. That's the castle that all the rest of the kings are going to live in King's Landing. It's complete. And he dies in that castle on his big, stupid sword throne. Jaehaerys raises himself an army, and way more people are willing to follow an untested 14-year-old than are willing to fight for the current battle-worn king with the world's biggest dragon. If I'm Maegor and I see that, I'm out of there. That's enough for me. I know my place in that. Maegor does not just give up. Of course, he keeps doing war until he is mysteriously killed. They find him dead on his big fancy chair. throat and wrists slashed. Could have been quite literally anyone. Nobody liked that guy. He died at 36, by the way, in case you're keeping track of how few of these bitches get to grow old. And he is forever known as Maegor the Cruel. You'll never guess why. It's time for Jaehaerys to be king. Araya and Rhaella travel to Old Town for this coronation, and Rhaella, the younger twin, stays behind to become a septa, which is like a nun for the faith of the Seven. This would be potentially problematic for the loud, opinionated, charismatic twin to be locked away in a nunnery while shy, sweet Araya goes on to become heir to the throne, except the strangest thing happens. Their personalities completely swap. Araya becomes brave and willful overnight, while Rhaella chills all the way out. Anything could have happened to make the identical twins swap personalities like that. I guess we'll never know. Jaehaerys is only 14 when he is crowned king, but he's a smart and charismatic boy. He learns about politics and he chooses his counsel carefully. Some of these widows get remarried under Jaehaerys' rule as well. His mother Alyssa remarries. She marries Rhaegar Baratheon, the man who sheltered her, Jaehaerys, and Alysanne after Visenya died. And Rhaena marries Andro Farman, the man that sheltered her, Rhaella, and Araya after Aegon died. Speaking of marriages, that new king is gonna need a wife. And Jaehaerys already has someone in mind. His younger sister, Alysanne. But the Faith would freak out, and nobody wants to go through all of that nonsense again. So Jaehaerys' council chooses a marriage match for Alysanne that isn't her older brother, and then Alysanne finds out about this, freaks out, runs to tell Jaehaerys immediately she doesn't want to marry some stranger. She wants to marry her brother. Jaehaerys takes them both, along with a septon, which is like a priest, to Dragonstone, where they are wed in a secret ceremony. The rest of the realm, save for Jaehaerys' trusted council, is not to know. They can't know that the children are secretly getting married on islands. Jaehaerys is 15 during this wedding, during this plan, and Alysanne is 13, and they hide out on Dragonstone for the next year, which I guess kings are allowed to do until the king comes of age at age 16. He's a man grown now, leaving Queen Regent Alyssa in charge while they're gone, along with her new husband, Rhaegar. Rhaegar Baratheon is desperate to crown someone else if Jaehaerys is going to insist on being married to his sister Alysanne. But none of his attempts to do so work, and he's so weird and pushy about it that his own wife takes away the title of Hand of the King from him. She says, "You're too upset that my children are getting married to each other. You can't be second in command anymore. Goodbye." When Jaehaerys does turn 16, comes of age, man grown, he flies to King's Landing with his sister wife, makes sure his council is all in order, and gets to work on the doctrine of exceptionalism. The doctrine of exceptionalism states that no one is allowed to marry their immediate family members, in accordance to the faith of the Seven, except for Targaryens, because Targaryens are not mere men. They ride dragons. And ride dragons, Jaehaerys and Alysanne do. Everywhere they go. They go on Vermithor and Silverwing. So no one can forget how scary and special they are. They also have the propaganda disseminated through the small folk, the peasantry, all across the land. Targaryens are not men. They are almost gods. Dragons are almost gods. How could you ever question the rule of a god? You wouldn't. You wouldn't. And this is why Jaehaerys lives to be super, super old and there's no wars under his reign. He literally positions himself not only as God appointed to the throne, but as the God who appoints. He's smart as hell. I think it helps that the Targaryens are supposed to look super ethereal and different as well because they're from a different part of the world. They're from Valyria. They all have that silver, gold, white hair and purple eyes, and they're super, super pale. And yeah, they probably look a little intense. And they're riding big, scary, scary dragons. If I was a peasant, yeah, man, you can have whatever throne you want. It literally doesn't affect me either way. I have a farm to take care of, and none of my potatoes are growing. Jaehaerys and Alysanne have a second public wedding. No one rebels. No one argues. Jaehaerys' heir is Araya, Rhaena's daughter, for the time being, you know, until he has a son. I hear some of you saying, hey, Rhaena is still alive and the eldest child of the last rightful king, Aenys. Why is Jaehaerys in charge? You would not be the only person to think that. And in fact, Rhaena's certainly thought it. They all just crowned Jaehaerys. Rhaena's not stoked about it, though. I'll tell you that much. 15-year-old Alysanne gives birth to her first child, a boy they call Aegon, who dies shortly after birth. Alysanne blames the untimely death on the fact that she was attacked whilst pregnant by a small cohort that was not won over by the whole doctrine of exceptionalism thing. Just sort of a group of armed women who were disgusted by the abomination that she carried on account of it being her brother's child. So she got herself a female protector, like a lady knight of sorts, to stay by her side. And her next pregnancy went just fine. She gave birth to a healthy baby girl 2 years later that they named Daenerys. Hey, does that mean Araya isn't the heir anymore now that Jaehaerys has a living child? Yes. Technically, let's check on them. How is that side of the tree doing? Rhaella lives a long, happy, boring life as a septa. She's an old town at the Starry Sept, and that's where she'll be forever. No marriages, no children, just Rhaella by herself, right here. Her mother, Rhaena Targaryen, takes her new husband, Andro, and all her besties from the Summer Sea, and moves them to Dragonstone. One of those besties is her sister-in-law, Alyssa Farman, and she also picks Araya up on the way. Araya hates Dragonstone, hates it so much, even though her mom keeps trying to introduce her to dragons and wants her to claim one. If I was 7 years old and lived on Dragon Island, I'd personally be stoked. You're 7 years old, you're a princess. For a time, you're the heir to the throne. Either way, you're a princess, and you live on Dragon Island. Come on. Rhaena, slighted by the chosen succession and never given the Iron Throne, is known by many as the Queen in the East during this time, which is a cool title, and maybe the only good and cool thing about the rest of Rhaena's life. Alyssa Farman, Rhaena's bestie and sister-in-law, asks for enough money to build a boat to sail away from Dragonstone and see the world and all of the seas. Rhaena says no, because she doesn't want Alyssa to leave. And this backfires. Alyssa leaves anyway, because she doesn't want to be here. Nobody likes Dragonstone for some reason, even though it rules. And as she goes, Alyssa steals 3 dragon eggs. Andro claims to have no knowledge of where she might have gone, and Rhaena never finds her, even though she took 3 of Dreamfire's eggs. Dreamfire is Rhaena's pretty purple-blue dragon, her bestie, and now her sister-in-law just steals 3 of her dragon's unborn kids and is off. But if you were ever wondering where those 3 dragon eggs from the Game of Thrones series came from that were gifted to Daenerys Targaryen for her wedding to Khal Drogo, it's because somebody betrayed our queen in the East. like a while ago. Rhaena's mother, Alyssa Velaryon, gives birth to 2 more children. Where the hell am I gonna put those kids? Gang, we might already be stuck. It's perfect. It's so legible. You can tell exactly what's going on. Alyssa Velaryon and Rhaegar Baratheon had 2 children, Boromund Baratheon and Jocelyn Baratheon. When I eventually give up and I redraw the whole thing, it'll obviously make a lot more sense. We're going with this for right now. Alyssa Velaryon dies giving birth to Jocelyn. There she is, Jocelyn Baratheon, when her husband Rhaegar chooses to save his child over his wife. Alyssa Velaryon was 47 years old when she died, which I will admit, pretty old to be still giving birth to children, especially in Game of Thrones times. Rhaena arrives to Jocelyn's birth too late to see her mother one last time. She threatens Rhaegar, at least, for that really weird decision he made, and he was scared enough to never marry another and take good care of Rhaena's half-siblings. Back on Dragonstone, all of Rhaena's close friends that she brought over from the Sunset Sea are dying mysteriously, one by one. They're being poisoned. But who could be poisoning them? Rhaena's own husband, Andro. Rhaena arranges for Andro to be tortured and slowly killed, but he jumps out a window and denies her the pleasure. Alysanne, Rhaena's sister, Jaehaerys' wife, queen of the 7 kingdoms, visits Dragonstone to try and offer her family some comfort. And they do not want it. Araya begs Alysanne to take her back to King's Landing because she hates this stupid dragon island. And Rhaena screams that Alysanne already has her rightful throne and everything else she could ever possibly want, that Alysanne doesn't understand her, that Alysanne will never have her daughter. So Alysanne goes back to her brother husband and says, what was all that about? I think Rhaena's right to be mad. I think Rhaena's life is really bad. Araya, on the other hand, is 12 years old and miserable. She wants to leave this place, and she's surrounded by dragons. So what does she do? She grabs a dragon, and not just any dragon either. Girly grabs Balerion the Black Dread, dragon of Aegon the Conqueror and Maegor the Cruel, the biggest dragon there is. She's tiny, mind you, and not going to war. Balerion is for war. I mean, he's for whatever he wants to be, obviously. He's a living, breathing, sentient creature. I love the dragons so much. I think Balerion is maybe just too much for this 12-year-old girl. That's what I'm saying. Araya takes Balerion the Black Dread and vanishes for over a year. She's just gone. Her mother, Rhaena, searches all the kingdoms on Dreamfire. No luck. But after more than a year, Araya comes back to Dragonstone with Balerion. He flies her back. She is thin, emaciated, dirty, and very, very, very sick. There is something inside of her, crawling under her skin, moving around, visible to the Septon that was tasked with saving her. He did not succeed, okay? Araya was burning. She was cooking from the inside out. They lowered her into an ice bath at one point to try and at least bring down the fever. But when they did, the creatures burst free of her and died in the light and the cold. Her eyeballs boiled, her skin cracked. Her last words were, "I never." She wasn't even 14 years old. By the time her mother, Rhaena, arrived back to Dragonstone, Araya had already been cremated. There was nothing for her to see, and there was nothing for her to save. Rhaena spread her daughter's ashes in the sky as she flew on Dreamfire because Araya would have hated to be stuck on that island forever. Balerion the Black Dread, for his part, Aegon the Conqueror's dragon, was wounded, huge half-healed scars marring his side, but he did live, healthy and whole. He is the first dragon that they can find to the dragon pit. It is, as the name suggests, a pit where they keep the dragons. They keep them chained and contained so they're not just flying about the countryside. The largest dragon to ever touch Westeros, big enough to swallow 10 grown men at once, confined underground. The prevailing theory is that when Araya claimed Balerion, she said that she wanted to go home, and Balerion took her to his home, whatever remains of old Valyria post-doom. That's what we think happened. We obviously can't say for sure that's where they went, but probably. After this incident, King Jaehaerys, first of his name, declared it formally illegal for anyone to sail to Valyria. We don't know what's going on over there, but it is officially not our business. They got skin bugs or something. Fire skin bugs. Rhaena does not stay on Dragonstone after this, and she also doesn't go to King's Landing to serve on her brother's council. Instead, she goes to live at a place called Harrenhal, a famously haunted and terrible castle, for the rest of her days. Once a year, she goes to visit her surviving daughter, Rhaella, but it is a very difficult and emotional thing because, well, she looks just like Araya, but Araya will never get to grow old. Rhaena dies at 50, and she rides Dreamfire until her final days. We don't even know when Rhaella dies, sometime after her mother. Her life is so uneventful and pious. Boring lady. A massive win as far as this crowd is concerned. What a sad branch of the tree. Let's bop back to Jaehaerys and Alysanne. They have 13 kids. 13 times Alysanne gives birth. That poor lady. We talked about how Alysanne had a son, Aegon, who died super young as an infant, and then there was Daenerys. Less than 2 years after Daenerys, Alysanne gives birth to another son, Aemon, and Jaehaerys starts calling Aemon his heir, which is weird, because there's an older child right there. Her name is Daenerys. As previously stated, there isn't formal precedent for male children to come before female children in the line of succession. Jaehaerys just assumes. I guess because he got to take over instead of Rhaena. But he's just assuming. He wants his boy to be king. Alysanne doesn't love that because it's weird, but it doesn't matter in the end because Daenerys dies before her 7th birthday. The plague. That darn plague, anyway. All right, I'm gonna real quick just add all Jaehaerys and Alysanne's kids. Too many kids. All right, we've got Aegon, Daenerys, and Aemon, and then there's Balon, Alyssa, and Maegor. After that, there was Vaegon, Daella, and Saera, and then there was Visera, Gaemon, Valerian, and Gale. That was their birth order. I wrote them different up here because I'm trying to think ahead. 13 children. You just know Rhaena was throwing away baby shower invites like it was her full-time job. Whole family judgy after number 8. Had to be. And it's a bad family meal lineup. The list of them, not good vibes. Boring ones out of the way first. Aegon, Daenerys, Gaemon, and Valerian all died as children and therefore didn't get to do anything interesting. Visera was a reckless, vain girl, and she died as a teenager after getting thrown from a horse. Maegor becomes a septa and helps heal children of grayscale, which is like if the plague turned you into a lizard really slowly. And she lives a long and happy life before eventually catching the lizard plague. Vaegon becomes a maester and then an archmaester, just a real smart and bookish fellow. He likes astronomy and potions, and he does not like his sister, Daella, even though they were betrothed as children. He was mean to Daella in public, and then they were no longer betrothed, and Vagon actually never had any interest in women at all, no matter how many beautiful drawings of unclothed women he was shown to try and get him interested in taking a wife. It never took. Daella, for her part, was also difficult to marry off. Alysanne, her mother, kept trying to make matches for her, but she hated all of them. So when Daella was 16, her father insisted that child has to get married immediately, no matter what. She's so old now. 16. So Queen Alysanne makes a short list of potential suitors and lets Daella pick. Daella chooses Lord Roderick Arryn, a man 20 years her senior. He literally had a daughter 2 years older than her. This is the bad family meal kind of vibes I'm talking about. Daella was very happy with her old man husband. He was like 36 for a short time, but she did die in labor with her first child, a daughter that she named Emma. Aemon is the heir, but quite frankly, he bores me. The most interesting thing he does is get married to his aunt Jocelyn Baratheon and have only one child. They have a daughter that they name Rhaenys Targaryen. Aemon also gets a dragon named Caraxes. The Bloodworm is his nickname. Not all of Jaehaerys' kids get dragons, mind you. It seems like only the kids that he likes get dragons. Balon is besties with Aemon. They're super close. They're like each other's mirror. Balon is also besties with his sister Alyssa, but in a different way. They are married, and they're super sweet and in love, attached at the hip. Balon claims the dragon Vhagar, Visenya's former mount, while Alyssa claims Meleys, a dragon that's actually never had a rider until Alyssa claims her. Alyssa was loud and she's spirited. She's got a crooked nose because she broke it as a child. She's got one purple eye and one green eye. She was nearly always on Dragonback. She loved the dragons. Basically, Alyssa rules. So, of course, she doesn't live very long or get to do very much. She gives birth 3 times, all to sons. Their first son is named Viserys, and then they have Daemon and then Aegon. But Alyssa dies shortly after giving birth to Aegon, and then Aegon dies just a few months later. So now it's just Balon and his 2 boys. And right after that, Visera, before she died, this Visera down here, she eventually dies getting thrown from a horse. When she's 14, Visera tries to seduce Balon and become his second wife. This family is bad. You know who isn't bad? Saera Targaryen. There she is. But I'll tell you what, she is causing problems at the dinner table on purpose. Saera Targaryen didn't like the rules at the castle. She wasn't into it, and she slept with a bunch of knights. Oh, and then her dad found out. Oh, no good. Now she's not a virgin. They can't marry her off to a noble family because everybody knows that Sarah's doing this, and flagrantly so. She's breaking all the rules, and she's proud of herself. And her dad won't give her a dragon. Her dad won't give her any respect at all. So what does Saera Targaryen do? She leaves. She runs off to the free cities, Pentos and things, and starts a brothel. She becomes the madam of a brothel and lives out the rest of her days. Happy, an entrepreneur, a businesswoman. We love Saera Targaryen. She has very little effect on what's going on here. We love her. Uh-oh, Aemon dies. Takes an arrow to the neck, no good. But he was the heir. Who's the heir now? That's the question, because it should be Aemon's child. That's the traditional line of succession. However, his only child is a girl. And Jaehaerys has already displayed some issues with that as a concept. Rhaenys is married. She's married. Oh, I should put him on the other side. Covering him up. Corlys Velaryon she's married to. There he is, Corlys Velaryon. And Rhaenys is pregnant as well. So maybe they give the position of heir to Rhaenys and they hope she's got a boy on the way? Nope. Jaehaerys passes over her completely and makes his next oldest son, Baelon, his heir instead. That's fine. I bet Rhaenys didn't want to be queen anyway. She did. She did, and she would have been really good at it too, I bet. Viserys marries his cousin, 11-year-old Aemma Arryn, but they don't start trying for children until she's 13. They're really patient that way. Aemma suffers multiple miscarriages on account of being 13, but eventually successfully delivers a daughter when she's 15 years old, a girl they name Rhaenyra. Gael Targaryen, Alysanne's last child, was a sweet and simple girl who grew up as her mother's shadow. Not in her mother's shadow, not like her mother was something she could never aspire to. She was just always at her mother's side. But Gael dies at 19, unmarried, to that darn plague, as far as the public knows. In truth, she was unmarried, but gave birth to a stillborn bastard and then drowned herself. Alysanne dies shortly after Gael. She made it to 64 years old, loved by all, outliving nearly all of her children. Jaehaerys still lives. He's a hardy old fucker, but Baelon doesn't. Dies of bad appendix. They didn't know about those yet. It was the old times, you see. New succession crisis. Who's the heir? I've got great news, Jaehaerys. You passed over Rhaenys last time, but she's got kids now. Her first child was, in fact, a son, Laenor, and now she has a daughter as well, Laena. Jaehaerys, you can fix your old mistake. You can name Rhaenys your heir and be confident it will pass shortly from her to her boy son. Or you could not do that, and you could name your most recent heir, Baelon's son, Viserys, your heir instead. I guess. King Jaehaerys, first of his name, dies when he is 69 years old after ruling for over 50 years, because you'll recall he became king at 14. 14! But at 69, he finally kicks the bucket on account of how he's 69 during Game of Thrones times. Has Visenya's the oldest? I think Visenya's the one that's lived longest so far. Goddamn. Viserys becomes king, taking over 7 kingdoms which have been at peace for Jaehaerys' entire decades-long reign. And I'll bet Viserys maintains that peace, too. How hard can it be to rule over 7 kingdoms? I redid the board redone. I squished everybody smaller and up, so we actually have some room to work with. We were sort of running out of space, and I also moved it so that Alyssa Velaryon and Rhaegar Baratheon's children, Jocelyn and Borman Baratheon, make sense where they are. They're all the way over there, which does mean that Rhaenys and Corlys Velaryon, as well as their children, Laena and Laenor Velaryon, are now found on that side of the board instead of this one. Me personally, I feel like I'm serving Queen Rhaenys realness right now. Quite frankly, it could be any of the Targaryens. Can you even tell that my eyes are purple? She's a queen. She's a dragon. She's a conqueror. Anyway, family tree. We are entering the era of the Dance of the Dragons, aka the Targaryen Civil War, aka the time period covered by hit TV show House of the Dragon. And no, I'm not here to tussle. All right? I know that the House of the Dragon girlies like to tussle. I'm not doing that. I'm just here to give my little lecture about fake history. I'm not going to fight you in the comments, is what I'm saying. Just enjoy the make-believe with me, please. We're doing book canon, all right? Show canon is different, and I like the show. I like the show. It's just a different thing. And if I want to stay consistent with what's going on, I gotta stick to my encyclopedias. There's no Renaissance crumbs in this video, is what I'm getting at here. Much to the despair of my personal friends who live and breathe Renaissance. I like it. It's not here. But also, I'm not gonna have to talk about Kristen Cole like at all for this. Kind of rules, because I'm not talking about battles. I'm not getting into fighting and battle details. I'm talking about the family tree and the little guys. And I feel like I need to make that very clear at this part of the video in particular. You're getting the same amount of detail from me that you've gotten so far. That's all you're getting. Viserys takes the Iron Throne at 26 years old. He is the 5th Targaryen king. There's 16 of them. By the way, too many kings. Viserys is also the last ever rider of Balerion the Black Dread. Because like a year after teenage Viserys claims Balerion, the dragon dies. On account of being like 600 years old or whatever during Game of Thrones times. R.I.P. in peace, my big, scaly king. Reunited with Aegon I and Maegor and Arya up in the big dragon fields in the sky. Yes, they all have to share. Viserys is a big, jolly fellow, and Viserys does not want his little brother Daemon to be king. Daemon is a warrior, capital W, warrior, good at war. He has Visenya's old Valyrian steel sword, Dark Sister. If that tells you anything, Visenya would love this dude. He's Visenya coded. Daemon is also a dragon rider. He rides Caraxes, the blood worm, last ridden by Aemon, husband of Jocelyn. They're around here. There he is. Aemon, husband of Jocelyn, father of Rhaenys, was the last ride of Caraxes. But now Daemon's got him. The blood worm. Daemon marries Rhea Royce of the Vale, but he doesn't like her. And he never has children with her. He tries a few different positions on his brother's council, and he's bored by all of them. He's a war guy. Aemma gives birth to a son, Baelon Targaryen, named for Viserys' father, of course. But Aemma dies in the process. At least Viserys has a son now, a male heir. Nope. Baelon barely lives for a day, so... No son, that's fine. Daemon can be the heir. But everyone agrees that's a terrible idea. Literally nobody wants that. Viserys doesn't want it. Nobody on the council wants it. That means, officially, formally, the heir is Rhaenyra. There is a precedent for naming a girl the heir. Arya was the heir for 2 different kings for a time, you'll recall. That heir status just normally lasts, until there's a son. Viserys remarries. He marries Alicent Hightower, who I've put here, who's going to be just right behind my head the whole time, I guess, daughter of his Hand of the King, Otto Hightower. When they get married, Viserys is 29, Alicent is 18, and Rhaenyra is 9 years old. That's what I mean by we're not talking about show canon. I'm sorry if you didn't realize it was this different. Rhaenyra is a baby, and Alicent is an adult. When the marriage happens. Daemon is briefly exiled for impregnating his lover, Mysaria, but she loses the baby, so I'm not actually going to put her on the board. I just wanted to let you know, just to prove how much this guy's brother did not like him, literally exiling him. It's a very rough relationship between the two. Daemon does, however, like one member of his family, his niece Rhaenyra. He asks his brother if he, his brother the king, could dissolve Daemon's legal marriage to Rhea Royce over here, so that Daemon can instead marry her, his brother's child. Viserys says no, if you could believe it. Alicent Hightower gives Viserys 4 more children: Aegon, Helaena, Aemond, and Daeron. 3 sons, none of whom Viserys actually claims as heir, which is super annoying for Alicent, who would like one of her boys to be king. Actually, that's how this works. You can name a girl child your heir, But as soon as there's a son, it's his turn. Not necessarily. Rhaenyra is Princess of Dragonstone, heir to the Iron Throne, rider of the dragon, Syrax, the hottest bachelor in Westeros. Everyone wants a piece of her. She takes Laenor Velaryon, rider of the dragon Seasmoke, as her husband, even though there are rumors that Laenor does not prefer the company of women. Wink, wink, nudge, nudge. His boyfriend's name is Joffrey. They have 3 children anyway, all sons, Jaehaerys, Lucerys, and Joffrey, Jace, Luke, and Joff. There are stories aplenty, whispers that these boys are not Laenor's at all, but Rhaenyra, Laenor, and King Viserys all staunchly oppose that, and anyone who wanted to say that the boys weren't even Targaryens or didn't look Targaryen enough because they didn't have the hair, had to shut their mouths. When all 3 of the boys got hatchling dragon bonds, they were babies together with their dragons. Jace rides the dragon Vermax, Lucerys rides the dragon Arax, and Joffrey rides Tyraxes. Rhaenyra's children and Alicent's children are not friends, and in fact, Lucerys takes out one of Aemond's eyeballs during a fight where Aemond calls Rhaenyra's kids bastards. This is another high contender for worst Thanksgiving era, especially because Viserys is up there just so pretending nothing's wrong. So everyone has to sort of half pretend to like each other because no one wants to get written out of the will, but the vibes are bad. Daemon's wife, Rhea Royce, dies getting thrown from a horse, I believe. So he gets to come back to the Seven Kingdoms, no more exile, and he gets to get married to Laena Velaryon. This makes Daemon and Rhaenyra siblings-in-law, I think, as well as niece and uncle, right? Laena and Rhaenyra were also besties, and Laena rode Vhagar. You remember Vhagar, Visenya's old dragon. Laena and Daemon are really a Visenya-heavy power couple, honestly. Vhagar was also Daemon's father Balon's dragon. I love Vhagar. Massive old lady. Laena rules. She loves dragons and adventures and being hot and friendly. She rules, which means, of course, she doesn't do much or get to live very long. She does have 2 children with Daemon, Baela and Rhaena, both girls. Those girls are also twins. Laena does get pregnant again with another child, but she dies shortly after giving birth to a twisted and stillborn son while trying desperately to get to Vhagar one last time and failing. She doesn't even make it outside. And right after she dies, Alicent and Viserys' kid Aemond claims Vhagar. Feels like the sort of thing you'd maybe want to wait a minute to do, for the etiquette, but congrats, kid. You got the biggest dragon in Westeros. Actually, all of Alicent and Viserys' kids get dragons. Aemond gets Vhagar. Aegon rides a golden dragon named Sunfire. Daeron, over here, the baby, gets a blue dragon named Tessarion, and Helena gets Dreamfire! Rhaena's old bestie, you remember? I love Dreamfire. Shortly after Laena dies, Laenor also dies. He's killed by one of his friends during a fight, which is probably why it's no longer socially acceptable to just carry around swords all the time. Because when things go bad, they go terrible. Whoa, you know what that means? It means both Rhaenyra and Daemon are suddenly free agents. 2 single guys. And they get married so fast. They don't even ask Viserys first. Rough. Okay, before we forget all about Laenor and the fact that he exists, a woman named Merilda of Hull comes forward and claims that her 2 sons are both Laenor's kids, 2 bastard boys, and Corlys Velaryon, Laenor's father, legitimizes them, says those are true-born Velaryon boys, and Adam and Alan are now both brought into the fold. Adam and Alan Velaryon. I'm so sorry about all the light reflections. The thing about whiteboards is that they reflect light, I've learned. I'm sorry. The actual parentage of Adam and Alan Velaryon is hotly debated because everybody knew that Laenor truly did not swing that way. So how was he making bastard sons? But whatever. Corlys says they're Velaryons. They're Velaryons. Some rumors actually say that the boys are actually Corlys's bastard sons, which would only slightly change their positioning on this family tree. So I'm leaving them here. This is the official story given to the public anyway. Also, technically, just Jaehaerys, Lucerys, and Joffrey are Velaryons as well, not Targaryens, because they have their father's surname. So I should have written Velaryon under all of them, but I didn't, and I'm not going to change it now. Rhaenyra and Daemon have 3 children, though their only daughter, and in fact Rhaenyra's only daughter through both marriages, Visenya, dies stillborn. However, Aegon and Viserys are both healthy baby boys. I hate that these people have 4 names that they just pass around in a circle. Can we please try a little bit of creativity? We can't all be Aegon. We can't. That guy wasn't even that cool. He named his home base Aegon Fort. Fort of Aegon. And that's who we're all naming our children after? We all need an Aegon? Speaking of Aegons, Alicent's Aegon gets married to his sister, Helena. They have 3 children, Jaehaerys, Jaehaera, and Maelor. The oldest 2, Jaehaerys and Jaehaera, are twins. I do like that twins also runs in the Targaryen bloodline. Not enough special shit going on with them. We've also got to have multiples. Honestly, this is probably a worse family meal than when Rhaenyra's kids were young. Like, okay, imagine being Aemond, okay? You have to sit at a dinner table, and you have to do this politely and correctly because your father is the king, and if you do it wrong, you're not going to be a prince anymore, or your father, the king, is going to do something else that is bad for you, okay? You have to go through all of this perfectly polite and respectfully. Your name is Aemond, okay? You have to sit at a dinner table with your nephew, Lucerys, that cut your eyeball out of your head, your older brother and sister, whom are married to each other, and the 3 baby-aged children that your brother and sister made together. There's your old king dad, who, remember, you have to impress, who's just like so oblivious and also doesn't like you or care about you at all. Your dad's favorite daughter that he does like and care about is here. Don't worry, Rhaenyra is here. And her, your dad's favorite daughter, married your dad's brother, her uncle, and their children are also here. You are unmarried, unbetrothed. Your big old war dragon best friend isn't allowed to come to dinner because she doesn't fit through the doorway. Your mom hates you. You're 19. Life is hell. Viserys dies of being old and sick. Oh no. Except actually, kind of oh no. Because he never did a takesies backsies on calling Rhaenyra his heir. But Alicent doesn't care about that. And has her son, Aegon, crowned king before Rhaenyra can get in there. Convinced that more people will support Aegon and his claim to the throne because he's a boy and Rhaenyra is not. A little bit Visenya-coded. Honestly, don't hit me for saying it. Aegon is now officially known as Aegon the Second, even though he's actually like Aegon the 18th, because they only get the numbers, they only count when they are kings, and he's the 2nd king, Aegon, after our conqueror bestie up here. This is what kicks off the Dance of the Dragons. The realm is split in 2. There are those who support Rhaenyra's claim, colloquially known as the Blacks, and there are those who support Aegon II's claims, colloquially known as the Greens. Basically, at its core, this whole complicated thing can be boiled down to all these guys just start killing each other. And the dragons, too. Aemond and Vhagar take out Luke and Arax right away, and in response, Daemon orders the death of one of Aegon and Helena's sons. They end up taking out Jaehaerys, Aegon II's heir, in a way that is really brutal. The assassins, who are named Blood and Cheese. Okay, Blood and Cheese ask Helena which son she would like for them to kill, either Jaehaerys or Maelor, because they got to take out a son. But she's got two options. She chooses Maelor because he's like 2, and she knows he won't remember it. And so the assassins tell the little 2-year-old, "You hear that? Your mom wants you dead." And then they kill Jaehaerys, taking out a toddler and driving Helena to madness. Helena throws herself out of a window not long after, which makes Dreamfire very sad, which should be a crime all on its own. Aemond and his brother Aegon II take their dragons out for a little joyride to kill Rhaenys, the queen who never was, and Meleys at the Battle of Rook's Rest, though Aegon II is critically injured after this fight and is never the same. And in fact, Aemond has to take over ruling for a little while as his regent because Aegon II is a little in a coma. He's not a very good king regent, though, because while King Regent Aemond leaves to go take possession of famously cursed castle Harrenhal, King's Landing falls, and Rhaenyra takes her seat on the Iron Throne. This was, of course, a very complicated process, and it did require a bunch of dragon seeds, or Targaryen bastards, it's kind of a gross name for them, actually, to claim dragons, the way that Adam Velaryon over here did, claiming his father's dragon Seasmoke. And also, Rhaenyra loses her eldest and her heir. Jace and Vermax are both taken out at the Battle of the Gullet. The good news is I'm not putting all those dragon seeds on this board. I'm not putting a bunch of bastards on the board. I'm not doing it. After the Battle of the Gullet, where Jace and his dragon die, Viserys goes missing. Presumed dead. He's not dead. He's in hiding in Lys, one of the free cities, and he gets to just chill there for the whole rest of the war. During the fall of King's Landing, Aegon II escapes to safety, but his remaining son, Maelor, is torn apart by a mob. No male heirs now. And no more Aemond. Aemond hangs out at that haunted castle for a while, taking his witch queen, Alice Rivers, as a lover, and he does get her pregnant. They're not married. He does get her pregnant, and she gives him prophecies in return, which is how he knows that Daemon and Caraxes the Bloodworm are coming to take him out. Aemond rides Vhagar to meet them, and they both die, or all 4 of them, counting the dragons. They all die, crashing into the God's Eye, which is a huge lake below. And years later, when that wreckage is explored down there, they find Aemond's body with Daemon's sword, Dark Sister, through his remaining good eye. Hell yeah. I did connect Aemond and Alice Rivers on here, by the way, because she does give birth to a son, but there's not really any continuing lineage from that, so I don't have like a name for you to put on the board. I just connected them so you know that happened. Being the queen in King's Landing doesn't go well for Rhaenyra. The Greens, the other team, shipped away most of the gold, so she ends up placing a lot of very unpopular taxes on the peasantry, and a couple of those dragon seeds that she found and gave dragons to betray her and switch sides. She also loses the support of the Velaryons, and the small folk storm the dragon pit. The big pit where they keep the dragons, that one. Those 2 traitors had Vermithor and Silverwing, Jaehaerys and Alysanne's dragons, but there were still dragons in the pit and in the city in general. Rhaenyra's baby Syrax was there, Jaehaerys' dragon Shrykos, Jaehaerys' dragon Morgul, Joffrey's dragon Tyraxes, and Dreamfire are all present. A mysterious man called the Shepherd told all of the small folk that their only chance to get out of this situation is to kill every dragon housed in the city, and if they all do it together, they can't lose. It's very A Bug's Life. There's more ants than grasshoppers. So that's what they did. They stormed the dragon pit. All 5 dragons I just mentioned die in the storming of the dragon pit, and So does Joffrey Velaryon, still a child. Rhaenyra is down to one son, as far as she knows, Aegon. And so is Alicent. Daeron dies unceremoniously either in battle or when a burning tent falls on him, leaving Alicent just and angry and injured Aegon II. Rhaenyra, post-storming of the Dragon Pit, very unpopular, not having a good time, flees back to Dragonstone where she is captured by Aegon II's men and fed to the dragon Sunfire as her own Aegon watches. Seems like that's the war done then. Aegon II is free to be king with literally no one else to oppose him. His entire family seems pretty wiped out. Baela and Rhaena are over there, but it's kind of it. Sunfire, Aegon's dragon, dies, finally succumbing to the wounds he sustained in the previous battles, and that is just the start of things continuing to suck for Aegon II. He is refusing the counsel of his mother Alicent, and of Corlys Velaryon. He's making even more wildly unpopular choices than Rhaenyra was somehow. He is keeping the younger Aegon hostage. He's commissioning statues of his dead brothers. He's refusing to pardon people that he desperately needs on his team. Armies are encroaching. They're here. They're gonna take him out until he is poisoned by his own men. Dead. Gone. Dead at 24. At least Rhaenyra made it into her 30s. God damn. Who's king now? The last remaining Aegon. Aegon III, also known as Aegon the Unlucky. What a sad man. I didn't even tell you about his dragon. He had a dragon named Stormcloud. He rode that dragon exactly once as a child. Stormcloud got shot down while Aegon III was riding it, and Stormcloud died. That's the one time he ever rode a dragon in his whole life. Nothing ever goes right for him. Aegon III is 11 years old when he is wed to Jaehaerys, who was 8. She was formerly betrothed, of course, to her twin brother Jaehaerys, but he got by them assassins. So now she's free to wed Aegon III. Both of them just the saddest and quietest you've ever seen children be. Just the most sullen, miserable little kids getting married. This marriage lasts only a few years before Jaehaerys throws herself from a high tower, just like her mother Helena, and her grandmother Alicent Hightower dies shortly after, isolated and grief-stricken in Maegor's Holdfast. Not being tortured. I know a long time ago I mentioned that Maegor's Holdfast, that building that Maegor made, had a torture wing, but it's only at the bottom of the basement. Mostly it's just a secure tower. She was just alone. They weren't torturing the grandmother of the queen. We have very few Targaryens now, and very few dragons beside, and all the dragons are much smaller than they've ever been. Over the last centuries, dragons just keep hatching smaller and smaller and smaller. They're never growing to the same size as, say, Vhagar Balerion, who, long gone post-dance. Our good king has no heirs, and his council and his regency, he needs regents, because he's like 12 right now. They decide that Baela and Rhaena will not make for good heirs. They're not suitable. They're women, but they could make some good heirs. Rhaena marries Corwin Corbray on the advice and word of the council, and Baela doesn't listen to a single word they say and instead runs off with her cousin and marries Alan Velaryon. Things look up for Aegon III for just a bit. When he is 14, he remarries. He marries Daenerys Velaryon, who is 6 years old at the time. Sure. And he gets reunited with his brother Viserys. They get him back from the Free Cities. In the Free Cities, Viserys was being taken care of by the Rogaire family, and he shows up married to Lara Rogaire. He is like 12 and she's like 19. Don't worry about it. there's a lot of drama where Aegon III's various Hand of the Kings and council members try to vie for power, and there's schemes and poisonings and all that nonsense. They try to frame Viserys' wife, Lara Roger. What you need to know is Aegon III has a very difficult childhood while waiting to come of age. Viserys still has a dragon egg, the one that was supposed to hatch into his dragon, but it never did hatch. And Aegon makes him send it to Dragonstone and get that thing out of his face. Aegon III has very little patience for dragons at all. He couldn't even stand to see Rhaena's tiny little pink baby dragon named Morning. Baela lost her dragon Moonrider in the war. I guess I never even said. There were very few dragon riders that Aegon III needed to worry about. And the very last dragons die during Aegon III's reign. The very last dragon that ever hatches doesn't even get a name. She's just known as the last dragon and only ever got to be about, yay big. He's also called the Dragon's Bane, the Unlucky, and the Dragon's Bane. Like, no wonder he's known as such a sad, sullen, morose man. World's most apathetic dude. Guy who wants 0% of what's going on. Aegon III and Daenerys Velaryon have 5 children. They've got Dana, Baelor, Daeron, Rhaena, and Elena. Holy shit, they found a new name. Elena! Viserys and Lara Roger have 3 children, Aegon, Aemon, and Nerys. Another new name! Lara Roger, cool as hell. She never bothered to learn the language that they speak in Westeros, the common tongue, and just always had people translating for her. She had all her clothes shipped in from Lys because she didn't like how they dress in Westeros either. She would also dress up as a man to go hang out in the streets at night and at brothels. She's very fun. Slightly less fun, she does abandon her family and go back to Lys while Nerys, their youngest, is still an infant. Viserys is heartbroken. Rhaena over here has no children with Corwyn Corbray. He dies after doing diplomacy really badly, and then Rhaena resettles on Dragonstone because she does have a dragon for a little while during the reign of Aegon III, and that guy doesn't want that dragon anywhere near him. So she keeps mourning over on Dragonstone until Morning's death. She does remarry a guy named Garemond Hightower. They have 6 daughters. We don't know any of their names, so I'm not just putting up empty boxes. Baela has a daughter with Alan Velaryon, who she names Lena after her mother. Presumably both of them, Baela and Rhaena, live lives that are just fine. We don't know how long they lived or what they got up to as adults. So hopefully it was just a peaceful existence with their daughters after all that war and pain and loss. Aegon III dies. Tuberculosis. 36 years old. 36 sad, sad years. His son Daeron becomes king at 14 with big plans of finally getting Dorne under the same rule as everyone else. 7 kingdoms. King of 7 kingdoms, Dorne is the 7th. You remember even our original Conquerors had some issues with Dorne. Rhaenys is still there, technically. He does it, too. No dragons or anything, just a lot of armies. Lot of soldiers who sacrifice themselves for it. We've done it, ladies and gentlemen. We've got Dorne. And then King Daeron, first of his name, gets killed by a lot of angry Dornishmen when he's 18 years old. Gets his cousin Aemon captured, too. New King Baelor the Blessed, they call him, because he was a fanatic. Baelor is married to his sister Dana when they're 16 and 15, as is tradition, but he refuses to consummate, and this made Dana upset. She started wearing all white outfits all the time to show off her unbroken, unstained innocence, to try and publicly shame Baelor. Viserys' son Aegon also gets married to his sister Nerys. Of course, they have 2 children. The Nerys also does suffer many stillbirths and miscarriages because she's a very small, frail girl, a very weak and sweet woman. The surviving children are named Daeron and Daenerys. Aegon is not small, nor frail, nor weak, nor sweet. But we'll come back to him in a minute. Baelor the Blessed. It's wild. Okay, so there's a bunch of Dornish hostages that the crown has right after all those Dornish revolts, after King Daeron died. And Baelor decides to personally walk them across Dorne to bring them home. Just walks across the whole country. He has successful peace talks with Dorne by agreeing to wed his cousin Daeron to Maria Martell. And then he goes to free Aemon, who you'll recall was captured when Daeron died. Aemon's captor, a guy called Will, hands Baelor the Blessed a key to the cage where Aemon is being held and gives Baelor permission to just go unlock that cage. But it's a trick. It's a bamboozlement. The cage that Aemon is held in is suspended in the air above a pit of poisonous vipers. Baelor, protected by his gods, goes to Aemon anyway, getting repeatedly bitten by poisonous vipers in the process. But he does get to his cousin. He does get his cousin out of that sitch. He can't rule the Seven Kingdoms for a little while after that, but he does manage to recover from all them snake bites somehow. Blessed by the gods, I guess. And then he gets his marriage dissolved and locks all three of his sisters in a special tower called the Maiden Vault to protect their virtue and their innocence forever. They don't love it. And in fact, no one loves it. Dana doesn't love it to the extent that she has her cousin Aegon's bastard son. Names him Daemon Waters, because Waters is the last name given to bastards born in this part of Westeros. Depending on the different part of Westeros you're born in, if you are a bastard child, you are given a last name that has to do with like the geographic, like the climate of the area. So there's a lot of water here, so it's Waters. Up in the north where it's all cold and snowy, they call him Snow. In Dorne, where it's really hot, they call him Sand. Dana has a Waters. The fact that Daemon is Aegon's son is a secret. For now, they don't tell anybody that, so shh, don't say anything. I just had to tell all you all on account of how I'm making a family tree. Aegon is really into having bastard children, actually. It's his favorite thing. He loves every woman except his wife, Daenerys. Back to Baelor, Mr. the Blessed. Baelor does a lot of charity. He outlaws sins. He burns books, all the usual. I suppose he makes an illiterate stonemason the Pope, and then when that Pope dies, he makes a random 8-year-old Pope instead. And then he dies at 27. Maybe from all the starving himself he was doing. Maybe because his uncle Viserys was super sick of his nonsense. New king. Are we going to give the position to Dana? Eldest of the No, we're not going to do that. We're giving it to Viserys. Officially, Viserys II. We're all so proud, an actual adult with experience taking the throne. He immediately dies of illness or poison. Who knows? Makes it to a hearty 50 years old, at least. Lets all the maidens out of the vault first, though. New king. Are we going to give it to Dana? No. Aegon the Fourth. 4 whole King Aegons. And if you thought some of these other guys were bad kings, you got no idea what's coming with this guy. Oh, he's just the worst guy around. Aegon IV claims that in his life he bedded hundreds of women, but he only ever loved 9. And his wife wasn't one of them. He said this publicly, that he loved 9 women and none of them were his wife. He's just as mean as possible to her. Like anything he could do to Daenerys, he does. Flaunting all his mistresses in public and physically abusing her. Daenerys and her brother Aemon, though, are actually super close. They're besties, so at least she's got one person on her team. Aemon even defends Nerys's honor when people bring Daeron's parentage into question, wondering if maybe Aegon IV isn't even the father. And then Aemon dies saving his terrible older brother from an assassination attempt. And very soon after that, Nerys dies in childbirth. And Aegon IV just sort of moves on. Instead of giving the Targaryens' ancestral sword, Aegon the Conqueror's sword, Blackfyre, to his heir, Daeron, his legitimate son and his heir, Aegon IV knights his bastard son, Daemon Waters, and gives the family heirloom to him. Because he likes that kid better. Likes the cut of his jib. He's thinking of making that kid his official heir. Sounds like a great idea, man. Succession crises go really well in this family, historically. Let's invite a few more. Daemon Waters really wants to marry Daenerys, but his dad says nope. Weds him to a woman named Rohan of Tyrosh for future political ties. Daemon Waters also takes on a new surname. He's not Daemon Waters any longer. He is Daemon Blackfyre. He takes on the name of that fancy ancestral sword he was given, Aegon the Conqueror's sword. And now there are Blackfyres. Daenerys, for her part, though she does not marry Daemon, she does marry Meryn Martell of Dorne, and she lives a long, beautiful, peaceful life in Dorne. They do have children, but the actual details of that are unknown, because George R. R. Martin hasn't given us any good encyclopedias about Dornish history. If he had, I would, of course, give you everything I know. But this is all I can do. Aegon IV never does actually change his heir and put Daemon Blackfyre as the next in line, which is good. Because people like Daeron, the actual heir. He has to kind of backseat rule the kingdoms for his dad, because Aegon IV, Aegon the Unworthy, he's also called, is mostly just eating and drinking and making more bastards, taking and giving bribes. Aegon IV wants dragons back. A lot of Targaryen monarchs sort of daydream about being the one to bring dragons back into this world. But instead of praying over a clutch of dragon eggs, the way that Baelor the Blessed did, he tries to get people to build mechanical dragons, dragon machines. It doesn't work. Aegon IV is a gross man, and he dies a gross death, rotting alive in bed. His last decree, the last thing he ever does, is legitimize all of his bastards, saying they're all Targaryens with equal claim because he's mean and stupid, and he hates when things are good and easy. Do I have to write out all of his known bastards into this family tree? No, right? I have to redraw all of this because I don't have room for everybody else. So I'm going to have to redraw all of this anyway, make them smaller, squish them up, probably rearrange some of this Dance of Dragons nonsense. I can't add in the 7 random women that Aegon IV for sure had kids with, and then those kids. Fine, here's all of Aegon IV's confirmed bastards and their moms. Megette gave him 4 daughters, Alysanne, Willow, Lily, and Rosie. All 4 of them grow up to be septas. Serenay of Lys gives him 1 daughter, Shiera Seastar. Belgair Otherys gives birth to 3 children that might be Aegon's, Bellinora, Nara, and Balerion. Ma'am, that's a dragon's name. Barbara Bracken gives birth to Aegor Rivers, who grows up to have the nickname Bittersteel, which I personally find unfortunate. Melissa Blackwood has 3 children, Maya Rivers, Gwyneth Rivers, and Brynden Rivers. Brynden grows up to be known as the Blood Raven, which is a way cooler nickname. Take note, Bittersteel. Aegon IV says you're all legitimate, right behind Daeron in the line of succession. I hate him. I'm glad he's dead. New king, Daeron II, our 12th Targaryen king. There he is, right there. He's married to Miriya Martell. Daeron and Miriya have 4 children, all boys, Baelor, Aerys, Rhaegal, and Maegor, Couple of new names in there. Elena over here, formerly confined to the Maiden Vault, is also having children of her own. First, she has 2 bastard children with her cousin Alan, who's all the way across the board. Follow that little green line. They have twins, John and Jane Waters. Again, with the twin genes here. Shortly after that, Alan Velaryon vanishes at sea, never to be heard from again, presumed dead, so they never do get married and make those kids not bastards, and Elena has to mourn him and continue on. Don't fret, Elena does get married to a man named Ossifer Plum. They have one son, Viserys Plum, but Ossifer dies on their wedding night. So Elena remarries. She marries a man named Ronald Penrose, and they have 4 children, Robin, Lena, Jocelyn, and Joy Penrose. And then Ronald Penrose dies, and Elena gets married again to a man named Michael Manwoody. That's a terrible name. No children for that guy. The Manwoody name dies here. And can I just say how proud I am of this woman, Elena Targaryen. She has 7 children and doesn't name a single one of them Aegon. A great feat. And none of the men she married were her blood relatives. That is a true hero. That's sort of Elena Targaryen's whole life, just getting married and having kids. She lives a good long while, mostly uneventfully. She does have one cool physical attribute, though. She has that white blonde classic Targaryen hair, except there's one streak of a golden blonde in it. How? Her sister Rhaena, though, post-Maiden Vault, never has children, just lives a peaceful life. Somewhere. Daemon Blackwater is going to cause some problems. So Blackwater is sort of the chosen name in general for the group of legitimized Targaryen bastards. All of them Aegon IV kids. They're the Blackfyres. And there's an era of Blackfyre rebellions. Daemon Blackfyre and Rohan of Tyrosh are also having a bunch of kids. They start with twin boys. What do we think they named those boys? I'll give you one guess. Aegon and Aemon. That's right. Then they also have Daemon Jr., I guess. Haegon. It's Aegon, but with an H at the front. Aenys and Kala. That's just the name of a flower. Kala gets married to Aegor Rivers Bittersteel. The Blackfyres want to be the Targaryens so bad. They need their own Aegons. They've all got to get married to each other. Find your own bit, guys. Come on. Daemon Blackfyre tries to usurp the throne from his half-brother Daeron II, and he fails real bad and gets his eldest twin baby boys killed in the process. Also gets himself killed in the process. Brynden Rivers, another one of Aegon IV's bastards, actually fights on the Targaryen side in the Blackfyre rebellions, which is fun. Not even rooting for his own team. Come on now, Bloodraven, let's have some loyalty. Basically, the Blackfyres are just causing problems for the next couple decades, and then they die out. I don't even have details on the full family tree of them for you, so I'm going to leave them here as is. They also stop weirdly intermingling after this point, as far as I can tell. So we're going to go back to our main guys. This was a fun little Blackfyre interlude, but back to the guys on the throne. All of Daeron II's sons get married, and they all got to get married to ladies outside of the family. Slim pickings if you're just looking for Targaryens these days. Baelor gets married to a woman named Jenna Dondarrion, and they have 2 children, Valar and Mataris. They're trying something new with the naming conventions, but it still fits and feels Targaryen. I love that for us. Aerys marries Eleanor Penrose, presumably a relative of Ronald Penrose over here, dead husband of Elena Targaryen. But Aerys and Eleanor have no kids, because Aerys doesn't like her very much. Rhaegal marries Alice Arryn. I do like the Arryns, and they have 3 children, Aelor, Alora, and Denora. Yes, Aelor and Alora are twins. It's just like Jaehaerys and Jaehaera. Maegor marries Diana Dane, and they have 6 kids about it. Aerion, Daeron, Aemon, Daella, Aegon, and Rhae. You know what this means? It means we have enough Targaryens on the board to get messy again. And get messy they do. Daeron II has a pretty chill rule, doesn't do anything too crazy. His eldest and heir, Baelor, does die young. Maegor accidentally offs him in a play fight. It's not a play. It's like a trial by combat. Like a group trial by combat. It goes wrong. He didn't mean it. Maegor is very sorry. Also, I say Baelor dies young. He was 39, which is ancient by Targaryen standards. Baelor's son, Valar, marries a woman named Jaehaerys of Tyrosh. They have a few stillborn children, but none that survive infancy, and none that we know the names of. I'm not putting any on the board. Daeron II dies of that darn plague. And that same plague takes out both Valar and Mataris. How the fuck did I say that last time? Mataris? Plague takes out Baelor's whole legacy at the same time. Jaehaerys of Tyrosh remarries. She marries a different Daeron, not the one that just died, not the one that was king, the one that is Maegor and Diana Dane's son, and they have a daughter named Viella. Nothing really exciting happens to any of them. Anyway, a king died. Daeron II is dead. We need a new king, and it's Aerys. There he is, the man with no children. That's okay. There's a lot of Targaryens on the board to be your heir. His heir is, of course, his younger brother, Rhaegal. But then Rhaegal chokes to death by eating food just the wrongest you can. So, okay, that's fine. There's other ones. Then his heir is Aelor. I mean, easy, right? But then Elora accidentally kills her twin brother husband. I forgot to say they got married. The twins were married. I don't like it when they do that to the twins. It feels worse somehow. It was a random incident, but he can't be the heir now. He can't do it. And neither can Elora, who would be next, because she loses her mind after this incident and takes her own life. Okay, so then I guess Maegor's the heir. That's all we've got left. Aerys has a really boring reign, and he makes it all the way into his 40s before kicking the bucket. We're all very proud. New king. Maegor is the king. King Maegor, first of his name. He's kind of a mean, sullen man. He accidentally killed his older brother Baelor that one time. His wife, Diana Dane, dies before he even takes the throne. His life kinda sucks, but I love talking about his kids, so I'm very excited to do that instead. Maegor's son, Aemon, is sent off to be a maester, to go be a learned boy, against Maegor's wishes. It is, Daeron II makes it happen while he's still alive. Aemon is gone off to be a maester. This is the Aemon Targaryen from the TV show Game of Thrones. In case you've been waiting for the Aemon you might recognize, it's this one. All the way down here. He's an old man in that show. Other children. Aerion and Daeron both fight at a tournament, a tourney, and Aegon, younger son here, goes to squire for Daeron. He's going to help him get into the armor. He's going to hand him his sword. He's there to be his little knight assistant. That's a squire. This tournament is a mess. Aerion kills a horse on purpose, like the horse of the guy he's jousting. He goes for the horse on purpose, and Daeron never even gets out to the tourney. He gets really drunk and doesn't even compete. Aegon, who was there to help out his brother Daeron, ends up just kind of hanging out with a really big knight named Sir Duncan the Tall, who does not know that this child he's hanging out with is a Targaryen. His head is shaved at the time, so he doesn't have that white blonde hair. And also he's just calling himself Egg instead of Aegon, a classic Targaryen name, because his brother Aemon always called him Egg before he left for permanent library school. Egg spends a bunch of his life just humbly squiring for Sir Duncan the Tall, having an absolute blast. He loves it. He's just amongst the common folk, seeing how they live, helping them out. He's a good dude. And he marries for love. He falls madly in love with a woman he meets named Betha Blackwood. This Aegon is also getting a show made about him called Dunk and Egg, about Duncan and Aegon. This era of guys right here, I think it's gonna be so cute. The kid they cast as Egg, if you haven't seen him yet, is so cute. Guys, I'm officially worried I'm not gonna be able to fit everyone on the board. I don't have that much longer to go, but there's not much space left. Daron down here dies of an STD. Rough way to go. Arion, this guy, Arion Brightflame, they call him. He's the type of guy who on purpose kills horses and breaks the hands of puppeteers he doesn't like. He's a terrible guy, an awful, cruel guy. Literally gets sent off to the free cities for a while by his family because they're like, clearly living here isn't good for him. Clearly something's wrong. Maybe living far away will fix him. And if it doesn't, at least you won't be here. Arion also marries his cousin Denora, and they have a son named Maegor. Not what I would name my kid personally, but to each his own. But, okay. So a lot of Targaryens are obsessed, infatuated with this idea of bringing the dragons back, right? Baelor did a lot of praying. Aegon IV tried to make his dragon machines, right? Arion believes that he is a dragon. He is a dragon. Targaryens are dragons. If you just unlock the dragon within you. And how do you do that? How do you get the dragon out of there? You drink lava. Obviously. Wildfire is what it's called. It's like an alchemical fire substance, and Arion drinks some. It does not turn him into a dragon. Instead, he just dies. Who could have predicted? Maegor, first of his name, dies in battle. And there's not a lot of options for a successor, TBH. Not giving it to Vaella or Maegor down there. Vaella isn't a very smart kid, and Maegor, everybody thinks, might have a little too much Arion in him. And we definitely didn't want that guy on the throne. Aemon doesn't want it. He's at Permanent Maester Library School, so it's gotta go to Egg. New king, Aegon the Fifth. Too many goddamn Aegons. At least he's an adult when he becomes king. He's crowned at 33. His dad Maegor makes it into his 60s. This feels so much more correct than the 14-year-olds. Egg and Betha have 5 kids, Duncan, Jaehaerys, Saera, Daron, and Raelle. He tries to make them all really politically advantageous marriages outside of the family, but they all have their own ideas. For example, Daron, his idea is that he does war and hangs out with other knights forever, if you know what I mean. His boyfriend's name is Jeremy. Duncan marries a witch peasant woman named Jenny of Oldstones, literally removing himself from the line of succession in order to do so. That's his punishment for breaking his betrothal. And then Jaehaerys and Saera decide to get married in secret, which is a problem because they both have politically advantageous betrothals. Raelle is the only one here not trying to make her dad's life harder on purpose. She marries Ormond Baratheon, Lord of Storm's End. Raelle and Ormond have one son, Stefan Baratheon. Raelle's life is super chill. She's just vibing in Storm's End forever. Jaehaerys and Saera have 2 children, Aerys and Raella. Jaehaerys hears a prophecy that the prince who was promised, a mythical figure who will be born amidst salt and smoke beneath a bleeding star, will come from the bloodline of his 2 children combined. So even though Jaehaerys and Saera and all Egg's other kids got to marry whoever they wanted, despite the big consequences, Aerys and Raella are not given that choice. And they are not stoked about it. And neither is Egg. He would love for his family to stop marrying each other, actually. That would be the greatest gift they could give to him. Egg, like much of his family, wants dragons back. Wants it bad. And he plans some sort of something. We don't really know what. Whatever it is, it involves a lot of fire, and much of his family is present for it, and it burns down a whole castle, place called Summerhall, with Egg and both Duncans inside, both his son Duncan and his best friend Duncan the Tall. Egg gets to be almost 60, though. He had a great run. Aerys and Rhaella's first child is born during that massive fire at Summerhall. His name is Rhaegar. It's not a very auspicious omen for the new baby. New king. It's Jaehaerys. Man who broke his father's heart by marrying his own sister when he wasn't supposed to, and then made his kids got married even though they didn't want to. Jaehaerys II. He's got a real boring reign. The last of the Blackfyres and all their rebellions die under his rule, but like, sort of it. He's a good king for the 3 years that he's king. And then he gets the darn plague and dies at 37. Fine. New king. It's gotta be Jaehaerys' son and heir, Aerys II. Before I talk more about Aerys' kids, I want to hop back to Rhaella for a moment. Rhaella and Ormond, they had Stefan, and Stefan marries a woman named Cassana Estermont, and they have 3 sons: Robert Baratheon, Stannis Baratheon, and Renly Baratheon. I just needed to establish those boys. And now we go back to Aerys. It is a rough go for Aerys II. So Aerys and Rhaella have a bunch more kids. And you'll notice I am so almost out of space. So let me explain this to you. So they have a bunch more kids. They have Rhaegar, who's already there. And then they have Shaena, Daeron, Aegon, Jaehaerys, Viserys, and Daenerys. Other than Rhaegar, only Viserys and Daenerys survive infancy. So they're both significantly younger than Rhaegar. There was a lot of children between them, and also they're the only ones I'm going to put on the board. I'm so sorry. I have failed you all on this day. King Aerys II is a paranoid man. He's always worried that he's going to get poisoned or betrayed somehow. He had wet nurses beheaded after his infants died, the many that he and Rhaella lost. Even though they'd done literally nothing wrong, he thought maybe they might have. He also had a lot of mistresses until he had like a sudden turn to religion, and then he lost all interest in women altogether. So he's already like this, right? Aerys is already like a lot to handle. Maybe not a great template for a king. And then he gets kidnapped and spends 6 months in a dungeon. Yikes. Not a great turn for the mental health, one has to imagine. And one would imagine correctly. Now absolutely everyone's out to get him all the time, according to him, at least. He doesn't go outside anymore. He doesn't go to his own family's weddings. He starts tearing his own councils apart. He's bringing in random new guys. He's refusing to listen to the old ones because they don't want what's best for him. He has Rhaegar married to Elia Martell from Dorne, only to refuse to hold their infant daughter, his grandchild, because she's Dornish. My man, you arranged the marriage to a Dornish woman. Infant's name is Rhaenys, by the way. King Aerys II is burning dudes alive for any reason he can think. He doesn't even have a dragon. He has to do this the acoustic way. Just with fire, matches, and wood and things. He's doing it for any reason he can possibly think of, and then as soon as he burns a guy, he goes to physically abuse his wife, because he's just so excited and pent up from the burning. He sucks. He's real bad. Worst guy we've seen since Aegon IV. So his son, Rhaegar, wants to usurp him, wants to get him off the throne, get himself on. People are super into this idea. People like Rhaegar. And now, Rhaegar actually also has a son named, would you believe it? Aegon. Surprise! But now, listen, Rhaegar probably isn't going to have any more kids other than Rhaenys and Aegon, because his wife, Elia Martell, almost died, giving him the second one. But who needs more than 2 kids anyway? Aerys is, of course, suspicious of Rhaegar, but that's because he's suspicious of everyone all the time. And he crashes a tourney where Rhaegar was going to try and rally support for his planned usurping. And then he cannot do that there because the man he wants to usurp shows up. The man does not go outside, ever. He had no reason to expect his father was going to crash this party. This tourney is also where Rhaegar meets a woman named Lyanna Stark. And Rhaegar Targaryen likes Lyanna Stark an awful lot. He kidnaps her, spirits her away. She's a beautiful girl, strong and talented and loved by many. It's possible she went willingly. It's possible she didn't. We don't have an account from her or Rhaegar about what went down. Either way, this is a problem. One, because Rhaegar's abandoning his wife and existing 2 children. 2, because Lyanna Stark is promised to Robert Baratheon, who's right over here. And Robert does not take kindly to losing his betrothed. Aerys II starts murdering more dudes with fire. He kills Lyanna Stark's father and one of her brothers and demands her other brother, Ned Stark, die as well. But instead, people start doing a revolution against him. It's Robert's rebellion. Aerys II sends his wife Rhaella and his 2 children, Viserys and Daenerys, to Dragonstone, away from King's Landing, for their safety. Actually, saying he sent Daenerys is maybe incorrect. Daenerys hadn't been born yet. She's born on the journey to Dragonstone, or shortly after they get there. One of those things. And Rhaella dies in childbirth, because of course she does. Aerys does not send Elia or Aegon or Rhaenys away for their safety. He keeps them around. Even after Rhaegar Targaryen is slain in battle, Robert Baratheon over here takes him down. The Battle of the Trident. Aerys II has a big plan. He's clearly losing, right? Robert took out his heir. His other children are now motherless on Dragon Island. Everybody hates him because he keeps demanding men burn alive. It's not looking great. He's definitely about to lose this war, his seat on the throne, and his life. So he's ready to enact his big plan. His big plan is to explode the entire capital city of King's Landing with wildfire. That stuff that Aerion, or where did he go? There he is, Aerion Brightflame, drank because he wanted to be a dragon. It's a bad plan. It's a really bad plan. You're just destroying a city for no reason because you can't have it, basically. And that plan is so bad, it gets him killed. Stabbed by one of his own knights, Jaime Lannister. The last Targaryen king pisses himself out of fear and gets stabbed in his big chair. Doesn't even get to burn the whole city alive, himself included. It's a real tragedy. Elia Martell and her children, Rhaenys and Aegon, are killed by Aerys' enemies, Gregor Clegane, mostly, though he doesn't mean anything to this family. He's a big, mean guy. If you know Game of Thrones, this part's exciting for you because you know these names. It's the Mountain. Robert Baratheon gets to be king because he won the war, and the nobility use his position on this family tree to justify that, which I think is both crazy, that's kind of wild, but also, man, I guess if we're going that they have to be on the family tree, he's at least there. I think everyone was just so sick of the Targaryens at this point. They were going to do whatever they needed to put a man with a different name on the dumb sword chair. But he's on the tree, so it also works. He hates Targaryens so bad. He has anybody with any Targaryen blood sort of like hunted for sport after this. He's not a big Targaryen guy, and there is never another Targaryen king. And that takes us to the start of the A Song of Ice and Fire series, or the Game of Thrones series, depending on whether you're a book or a TV show kind of guy. Let me just, real quick, all right? Daenerys marries Khal Drogo. Khal Drogo kills Viserys because Viserys sucks. Khal Drogo dies, and Daenerys gives birth to a twisted, stillborn son named Rhaego. So now, officially, Daenerys is the last Targaryen. Aemon is alive. Don't look at him. The entire family tree has been whittled down to a single point. Just Daenerys. And you can't even really defend that over here keeps going with the Baratheons, because Robert and Renly never have any true-born children. Robert's got bastards and kids that everyone's pretending are his that live in the castle. And Renly doesn't swing that way. Stannis has a single daughter that is not long for this world. So it's not continuing over here. And Aemon doesn't count. He doesn't count. He's at the Night's Watch. He gave up his name and his titles. He's just Aemon now. So there's just the one Targaryen, Daenerys Targaryen, the last dragon. Or is she? Because the prominent theory and the concept that did make it into the TV show Game of Thrones is that Rhaegar did have another child, not with Elia Martell, but with Lyanna Stark. Now, the show would like to tell you that he somehow got a member of the Faith of the Seven to dissolve his legal marriage to his living wife he has living children with so that he could marry this woman. That's too far from me. This child would be a bastard, but would be a son. Rhaegar was obsessed with prophecy, with the prince who was promised prophecy, and also this idea that the dragon will have 3 heads. That's a phrase that he really liked. And to him, that most likely meant that he needed to have 3 children, right? He already had 2. His wife wasn't going to give him a third one. It would make sense that he would be trying real hard to have that third kid some way. I don't have an issue with that concept. I don't even have an issue with Lyanna dying in childbirth. They all do that, I guess. And Lyanna's brother Ned Stark raising her child, claiming that child is his bastard so that Robert would never know there's another Targaryen running around out there that he could remove from the world. Jon Snow can be Rhaegar and Lyanna's kid. That's fine. That's fine. I think that's what they're going to do in the books that we're literally never going to get. But I do have a problem with one thing the show did with it. Not the wedding thing. That's so egregious it literally doesn't even count to me. One other thing the show did with it. The most unforgivable lore drop in Game of Thrones. The idea that Rhaegar and Lyanna's son would be named Aegon. That's right. This entire video was an excuse for me to complain about my least favorite thing in the TV show Game of Thrones. Look at me. D&D, David, and Dan, look at my face. Do you see this? I know there's a lot of Aegons. Okay? I know that's the Targaryen name. I know it very well. Every single Targaryen felt like it was their sacred duty to add another goddamned Aegon to the list. But do you want to know how many of them had 2 Aegons? None. Because that's not how you name your children. Even when their Aegons died as infants. They didn't try for another Aegon. They just used the other 6 names afforded to them by their family line. Rhaegar already had an Aegon. You morons. You weirdos. Rhaegar and Lyanna would not have named their child Aegon. They would have named him something based on Visenya, so that Rhaegar could have his trio of conquerors reborn. He already had Rhaenys. He already had Aegon. He just needed the third one. It's right there. He would have been Viserys, probably. Again. Maybe Viserion. That's what Daenerys named one of her dragons, but it's a good one. Makes me so mad. Of all the stupid decisions that show made near the end, that's the dumbest one. Aegon. Kill me. And that's the Tangled Targaryen family wreath. Did you learn something? Or did you just enjoy the ride with me? It's like history. but make-believe. Thank you so much for joining me for it. I hope you at least had fun. I did. This is my favorite thing to do. I love talking about nonsense for long periods of time in fun costumes. I don't know if you picked up on it. If you want to hear me talk more while playing make-believe myself, you can check out my TTRPG show, Unprepared Casters. We've got lots of video one-shots over on our YouTube channel, and it's a really good time. If you want to play make-believe yourself, but with my help, you can buy my book. It has 100 whole character concepts for TTRPGs right in the pages. And if you want to support more of me doing exactly this, check out my Patreon. I could not do any of this without my patrons, my very small and fast dragon riders. Patrons such as Alcyon Hero, Annie G, Autumn Vector, Blar Dihar, Britty, Chatty C, Felis, R, Gwynrick, Joshua Caliendo, Catherine, Kazran, Rue, Zachary Flies, Emmy Lone. T, Aaliyah, Abalab, Abyssal Feast, Addie, Aiden Cassis, the stronger Aiden, Aiden Sowood, notoriously low roller, Amy E, Aisha Love, AJ Holian, Akadaroku, Albandi Gyoza, Alicia Bateman, Ali XX, Alec, Alkyons, Ulsa Dragon, Alyssa Pearl, Amalia, Ams, Anemone, Anastasia, Anja, Anna Elise, Anna Rosenloff, Anna, Anthony Brantley, Annie Teller, Aoife, Archie Archer Tang, Argentum Inc., Ariana Collier, Artemis Nix, Ashley Figura, Audrey Mouse, Aurelium, Avocado, Avery Jack Thayer, Avery Little, Exerces, Aziz, Azur, Babbity Kate, Bada Kid, Bailey Wind, Barto Hawk 764, Beanie Boy Rufus, Beard Acknowledge, Becca B, Beck, Bed Knobs and Bookshelves, B, Ben Sweeney, Bethany Draws Art, Billy Turner, Blake Douglas, Blake Stewart, Bobby Banner, Bommy Lee, Boop, Box of Cherubs, Brian Rulu, Bridget Quinlivan, Bud Walker, Burning Box, Burnt Toast, Caleb, Cam Achu, Cammy, Canary, Captain Twizzler, Carly Hartle, Caroline Odin, Cass Rogers, Cass Carter, Cat in a Skin Suit, Catherine Mullen, Celt Code, Cerulia, Chaotic Kiwi, Chelsea Souter, Cheryl Fitzgerald, Chronic Escapee, Cielo Atten, Claire Online, Cland, Clara Oswald Fan 23, Clever Name, Connor Robinson, Connor Virgilius Murphy, Cornhorn, Corey Cattle, Kuste, Christian Hall, Daisy B, Dakota Lewansky, Dan, Danny B, Danny Sprague, Daniel, Danielle Tefke, Danny, Darnax, Decayed Robot in a Green Field, Declan Roof, Deals, Delaney, Devin Ellert, Devin Meskill, Digimaniac 33, Ditto, Drake, Eli Holland, Elizabeth L, Elysium M, Embers, Emily V, Emma, Emma B, Emma Kennedy, Emma S, Emma Tamplin, Emma Thomas, NB Ennui, NBO, Angessa, Aaron Rumsey, Ethan Figgins, Eskel, Evan Kinsella, Evan Linden, Evil Scrump, Far Out Wonder, Fletcher Sanderson, Florence Tarnas, Foolery with Nori, Fox, Funky Elvis Monkey, Finch R, Gabriel Airbag, Geominius, Giant, Gilded Dragon, Good Soft Gay, Gracie Nonos, Graham Harrison, Gray Hawk, Green Walker, Gregory Wise, Gray Does Things and Stuff, Grimbus, Gun Gilf, Hale, Haley Walker, Hannah Anderson, Hannah Jeffrey, Harley, Harper Hex, Haven 2010, Heliotrope Fox, Henry, hey, Meg's here, Houston Littlejohn, I Will Sing No Requiem, I Ate Tree Sap, I Dizzle 22, Infinity Girl, Insane in the Brain, Isby, I Ship Genfix, It's a Secret, Izzy Alexander, Izzy Kraus, JV, Jawman02, Jackie, Jacob Chisholm, James Quim, James Summers, Jamie, Jared Booth, Jasmine, Jax on the Box, Jay Ocha, Jane, Jeff, Jenny Fosnacht, Jenny Waboom, Jericho, Jester of the Rat Court, Jet, John Ego, Jidem, Jonah Levin, Jordan, Jubilee, Juliana Backer, Julie Stonky, Justin Madison, Kate, KJ, Kavo Conrad, Kat, Kate Levia, Kathleen, Catherine Hill, Katie Larrabee, KW, Kelsey Rodriguez, Kirby.jpg, Kevrlin C, King Cozy, King Panda, Kitty Large Paws, Kyle Richardson, Lady Dawn, Lady Jessica, Lauren and Daisy, Lawson, Lee Z's, Lemon, Lexi Scott, Libby, Lillian Carter, Lily Belvedere, Lily Wilson, Lisa Spitalowitz, Liv, Lizzie Gale, Logan, Lou, Is a Shoe, Lucy Schneider, Madeline Gentry, Maya Faranas, Manny S, Manuel Muller, Marie Isabel Luneus Adora, Marie, Martha, Mary R, Matt Dam, Matt Mobes, Max Mormon, Matt Roth, May, Meatball Cat, Meg, Micah, Michael Francis, Michael West, Midnight Rose, $1 Million Cheese Wheel, Mindless Nonsense, Minnie's Mayhem, Mira 9404, Mitchum Ditchum, MLD Irish, 14, Mo Spooky, Molly Early, Molly McDade, Moon Noodles, Moonlore, Morgan Hansen, Morgan Potter, Moss Rose, Mr. Top Hatter, Marf Wazir, Nadia Desiree, Nick C, Nick the Brick, Nyla, Noah, Non-Existent Mountains Theory, Non-Toxic Ivy, Nora H, Nick Snacks. Of Faye, OKW, Alethea, Olive, Oliver Ryburn, Omi Gracie, Onyx Claw the Archdruid, Oren T, Oski the Bard, Oxbox, Oswin H, Page, Papa Midnight, Paper, Parker, Petal Stripe, Pete Alexander, Philip Dameron, Fix, Phoenix, Piper Porter, Poblato, Poetic Cinema, Poorly, Flesh Skeleton, Prettiest Bearded Lady, Quintanamo Bay, Rainbow Namja, Razel Burst in Frame, Rat Scratch, Rebecca Dawn, Reed Brody, Robin Eckberg, Roman Landslide, Rookie Baby, Rosemary Finch, Rowan C, Rat King, Ryan Hlackovec, Sagely Sapphic, Salamence, Sam, Samantha Altols, Samara Kingston, Samson, Sarah Ann, Sarah Pritchard, Sarah Sunshine, Scam Likely, Scariest Bird, Sea Bass of the Sea, Sean Ryland, Simon Says, Site 42, Sky McQuinley, Skylar Grayson, Slime Envy, Snail Wife, Solodilla, Space Battery, Spapples, Spartan Warrior, Spoon of the Universe, Steen, Steph Bell, Stephen Gibson, Stevie U, Sunbell, Sunny Solstice, Supercalifragilistic Existential Crisis, Severe E, Sydney, Silas SSS, TJ, Taylor Burke, T, Tex the Gentle Giant, the Light One, the Luciest Fruit, the Plum Satyr, the Sheriff, the Wizard C, the Kestrel, Theodore Lawrence, Thomas Guzzo, Tiffany V, TJ Dash, Toby Springer, Tommy Peterson, Trashly, Trisadale, Unusual Willie, Val Hallen, Vanessa Johnson, Vanillan Zunker, Victoria Fay, via name, V Sharp, Vunks, Walker Grant, Weather Waxes, Wes, Will Turner, Woody Daniel, Ren Cracknell, Showtime, Yes Chef, Yizna, Ungve Leo, Zachary Wayman, Zane, and Zeph Lordicus. Thank you all so much to those patrons and every other name you saw scrolling across your screen. Thank you for joining me for this video that was both too long and far too short. I will see you on the next one. I'm pretty sure that not a single minute of this video made any sense, but at the end of the day, it's all about having fun, being yourself, and realizing that your life could be a lot worse than it is right now. Yeah, things are hard. You had the worst 3 months of your life just now, but hey, your dad never made you marry your brother, and you made it to your mid-20s. That's something.